Today on episode 116 of Rail Talk, we react to the final Cigar Mile Day card from Aqueduct. I take a visit down to Ocala, and we welcome Dan Tordjman to talk about the Japan Cup and what we can gain from how popular racing is in Japan. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And John, I don't have a pithy one-liner today. I'm just cold as shit. You know, I got nothing else to say except I was in Ocala for the weekend and I come home and it's 15 degrees out. It's not even officially winter time yet. Joe, old man winter is here.
Yeah, no question about it. Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. And Joe, I know it's cold because I'm here in my basement and all of the cave crickets have come in to hibernate for the winter time. So that to me is the first sign of winter.
What's a cave cricket?
Oh, you'll know it when you see it. We'll pop one on. They're these little crickets that they're harmless. They live in your basement or in crawl space and stuff like that, and they're almost totally blind. So when you go to try to catch them, they like jump into you. Which for me, who gets the heebie-jeebies with any insect or critter, I'm always like, well, it's attacking me. But they're like this big.
Oh, so that's a country thing, right? Like they don't have those in the city.
No, they're called cockroaches in the city, I believe.
Start the show. The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and Jon Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. Go to TaylorMadeFarm.com. Learn about all the opportunities to work with some of the best people in the business on the sales side, the stallion side, the boarding side, the partnership side. They do a little bit of everything, and they do it as well as anybody in the business, as we say. Obviously, that stallion roster is on the come up. The yearling sales, they're the place to go for the consigners. You saw John and DJ take advantage of that. And just to kind of give you the impact of the Taylor family and the TaylorMade crew beyond just the racing world. Shout out to Frank Taylor and Stable Recovery for all the work that they've done to help people overcome addiction through the magic of horses and what they can do for people. And John told me that Frank Taylor is going to be the keynote speaker talking about Stable Recovery at the symposium this week. So that's awesome. I still think about that, breakaway rail talk that I did with the folks from Stable Recovery. That was like one of my favorite episodes of anything that we've done this year. It's such a worthwhile cause and something you should definitely check out if you haven't yet. 100% job placement rate for their graduates from Stable Recovery. Really, really impressive, and just goes to show you kind of like the ethos behind the Taylor family and TaylorMade and the way they help people out, and just there's all class, all professionalism, and we appreciate them and their support this year. And go to TaylorMadeFarm.com, learn more about everything that they're doing in the business and how you can get involved. So we had one of my favorite cards over the weekend on Saturday, Cigar Mile Day. You heard Nick and I talk about it last week, how this is basically like the second to last major card that's ever going to be at Aqueduct. And it looked like they got a good crowd out there on Saturday. Bishop's Bay ran down Mika in the Cigar Mile. That's a terrible beat if you bet Mika in that race at 14-1 and led pretty much the entire stretch except for the last jump. But Bishop's Bay gets up 107 buyer. So it's the race was faster than it looked like it was going to be on paper. Yeah. Obviously still not a household name, but maybe a horse that could take a step forward in the handicap division going into next year. I thought the star of the day, though, was the 2-year-old filly Zany in the Demoiselle. Now, just to be fair, that was a piss poor field for the Demoiselle. It was a short field. Let's be real. Like, they've had some nice horses win the Demoiselle over the years. Mm-hmm. There's a reason she had one race. She's stretching out for 6.5 furlongs, and she opens up at 1-5 in that race. Nevertheless, she inhaled the front runner like she was standing still, kicked away in the stretch. Just super impressive, especially, like I said, stretching out just from one sprint race to 1 1/8. Not an easy thing to do. She's by American Pharoah. You don't see too many American Pharoah stars around anymore. You've kind of been usurped a little bit by Justify at Coolmore, but I thought that was very impressive. And I can't wait for the op-ed from somebody out there about why she should be 2-year-old filly champion instead of Super Corridor. Since everybody's apparently trying to find a reason not to vote for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies champion to be champion 2-year-old filly. But that was a really impressive performance. Definitely just vaults her into the top 5, at least maybe top 3 of fillies turning 3 going into the new year. That was the star of the day on a day where, there were no superstar performances. She stuck out to me, John.
Note to self, write op-ed under pseudonym. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, I was just writing down because Zany is an American Pharaoh filly, and I really think that aside from the fact that Mike Rapoli owns it and Todd Pletcher trains it, and I read was the jockey on it for this race. It's really the breeder. The breeding came through on this one.
I
Joe.
forgot about that.
Yeah, an American Pharaoh out of Mo Green. But Zany was really impressive. It is a grade 2 for a reason. That being said, there have been historical short fields in this race over the years. I think primarily because of the timing of the race. You're not getting anybody coming in from the Breeders' Cup, coming cross country, especially to run in this year's Demoiselle. So, we will see. By comparison, whether or not the competition steps up and continues to move forward. But on her own, Zany, looked like a really, really nice filly. Again, that's not news breaking. She won by 8.5 lengths in a hand ride. But Joe, to your point, unusual for American Pharaoh to have a 2-turn juvenile win a graded stake race. Yes, but just as the racing gods do to us time and time again, a horse gets exported, and what happens? Boom! One of its foals jumps up and wins a big graded stake race and is all of a sudden on the Oaks or the Derby campaign. So, it was meant to be. It was meant to be. And I remember when we were selling this filly at the Fasig-Tipton Saratoga sale, and the big question wasn't her pedigree, wasn't her looks, wasn't her walk, wasn't her vetting. It was, what are we going to do with an American Pharaoh? And, the buyer's credit, they kind of looked past American Pharaoh on this one. And there was a little bit of a bidding war on her, and she sold for $350,000. So, I'm really proud of the fact that we're the breeders of the horse. I hope she goes on and does well. And Joe, here's the weird thing about our industry and timing. Okay. It's like comedy, comedy is timing plus tragedy or something like that. Well, anyway,
I think it's just like timing is everything in comedy. That's a separate.
Well, that too. That
thing you're talking about.
It could be
comedy. Comedy is tragedy plus time.
Plus time. Okay. So I was right. Yeah. Okay. I got the math on that. All right. So we're sitting there and we do the reduction. We put all these horses in August, and we're like, you know what? Mo Green's been a really good filly of ours. We campaigned her. We bred her a bunch of times. She had some good foals that sold well, but in the grand scheme of things, we're cutting down. So I had to make the difficult decision to sell Mo Green. When we did the pre-sale estimates on her, we thought that she would bring 150 to 200 because she was in full of Ocala, and she's a grade 3 winner herself. And sure enough, on November 2nd, Zany goes out and wins in a hand ride at Gulfstream Park. And all of a sudden, she goes, the mare goes in the ring and she brings $550,000. And after she goes to the ring, I'm upset because she's been part of our program for so long. And she was really the one that I was like hoping that we didn't sell. And I go back into the conference room, and TaylorMade's like, hey, that was great. $550,000. It's twice what we thought, at least, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, the timing of it's amazing. Imagine if we had Mo Green in the January sale now instead of, or on the digital platform instead of in November. But that's timing. And I'm not, believe me, I'm not upset about the fact that we sold so well. I'm really excited about the fact that Mo Green has a baby out there that looks like that she can run and run fast. And the 89 buyer, Joe, is pretty good this time of year.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of a 2-year-old filly off the top of my head that's run faster than that. That's the world of Jon Green. You sell a horse for $550,000 and you're disappointed. Imagine that. It's like
I never said disappointed. How dare you?
This is the implication.
I said I was high-fiving and doing really well. But then, if we just had been a month, but that's timing. Just like I said, with comedy and sales. Timing.
Well, that sure means you're going to be rooting for us to beat her in the Oaks next year, because then how much is that mare going to be worth if Zany wins the Kentucky Oaks?
I'm just happy for Mo Green. I mean, honestly, she was in our program for 12 years, and that's longer than most horses stay in any program. And it was gut wrenching, when she went to the ring. Look, I'm getting verklempt right now. And I remember when they were signing the ticket for her, I walked up to Jacob West and I said, make sure that she is always treated royally. And he said, mm-hmm. And now she will be.
No any cave crickets near her.
That's right. No stinking cave crickets or cockroaches for her.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, that's exciting. Like I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that off the top because I did notice that. I know I did notice that I was looking at the race. I was like, oh, DJ Stable bred. But yeah, that's, it's a good program. It's just being completely neutral and impartial here. It's a really good breeding program. But yeah, we'll look forward to her in 2026. On the note about Super Corridora, she's gonna have her first work back this week. She's done great. Like, we gave her like an easy month, well-deserved easy month after the juvenile fillies. She's gonna work again this week, and then she's gonna run in the Las Virgenes, which is February 1st at Santa Anita.
Okay.
And then either the Santa Anita Oaks or the Fantasy. So we're looking to have 2 preps for her for the Kentucky Oaks. So
nice.
good to get her back going. And I'm really excited because, we took a shot running her back in 3 weeks. And, I think that you could understand, it'd be understandable if she came out of that race and it was like, and like gassed and like needed several months off on the farm. She really hasn't. Like, she's been in light training and really has handled it well. So I'm really excited to see like what kind of step forward she can take in 2026 after she's named 2-year-old filly champion. I hope, I pray, I have my fingers crossed for that. On to the rest of the card. Paladin won the Remsen, got an 85 buyer, slower than the fillies. I don't think any of the horses in there are scaring anybody just yet for the Derby Trail, but obviously it's only Paladin's second start. So he's got room to grow from there. I thought it was cool seeing the reaction from the owners of Just Beat the Odds when he won the Elite Power Stakes. It was like it's a smaller partnership, and there was a great video on them when that horse hit the wire first. And it's a, Greg Sacco trained horse. So, New Jersey connections, local connections. Love to see that on a big day like that. And I wish they would go back to Thanksgiving weekend because, I get why they don't do it, because they don't want to compete directly with that big Churchill card. But in terms of weather, there's a big difference between Thanksgiving weekend and the first weekend in December, often at Aqueduct. And also, like they shut down turf racing earlier, and so it didn't really matter. But there was a time where you used to run on grass through Thanksgiving weekend, so you might still be able to have some turf races and some stakes races. I wish they would go back to the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend and not the first Saturday in December. And I got to say, because we talked about this a lot with the vet scratches, we had to vet scratch She's Country out of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series stake on Saturday. And that race, let me see, who was it? That race was won by Braver Than You Believe, who got a 77 buyer. It's higher than I thought it would be. I thought you really only needed like a low 70s buyer to win that race, but she had a big shot. And nobody went on Twitter. None of the West Point partners went on Twitter and complained about it. Nobody said this is the worst thing to ever happen to horse racing. You got to take your lumps. It sucked. She's probably never going to run for that level of purse again. And you just gotta take it. She had a little bit of a skin irritation and like a tiny bit of filling in an ankle. In past years, is this something that a horse could have run through and been fine? Yeah, most likely. But in this world, you can't take any chances. So as much as it sucked and as much as that was a kick in the junk on Saturday morning while we're doing our Ocala yearling showcase, you gotta walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And we'll keep it pushing and find another spot for her. So I just wanted to mention that because people. I don't want people to think like I'm just casting stones at the folks who make a huge deal out of vet scratches. Like, it happens to us too, and you just got to deal with it. John, anything else that stood out to you from Cigar Mile Day or even the weekend before when you weren't here?
No, not really, Joe. I mean, I think that the whole calendar and trying to figure out when it's most beneficial to have certain days. I want to say that the powers that be have done their analytics and figured out that maybe we need to avoid certain days or push it off a week because it means we're going to have additional horses coming into these bigger races. At least I don't know if they are having those analytics or if they're having those conversations, but I would like to think that. At NYRA, at least, I'm sure that because I know that they look at the numbers. I'm sure that they're looking at it and saying, yeah, maybe a little colder, maybe, for a week, later in the year, but we're going to get X number of horses, more horses coming into these races. And on top of it, it really is the only game in town. I mean, you talk about, what we're going to be going over on the show. And really, if it wasn't for that card, there wouldn't be any graded stake races to talk about this, this weekend, or any big races to talk about this weekend. So I kind of understand where they're coming from. The good news is that Aqueduct will never have to worry about it again.
Okay. All right. Well, there's need a low blow there. Like, we're going to miss Aqueduct, like, at least, and I listen, Aqueduct takes a lot of shit. They had a good crowd there on Saturday, and they get pretty good crowds on a regular Saturday as well. And
right.
I don't know that it's going to be a lock that there's going to be a ton of people flocking to the new Belmont right away.
True.
I think that that's something that's going to have to be built up over time. And, as easy as it is to have Aqueduct be a punchline, like, there's a lot of diehard racing people that are out there pretty much every single day. And I don't think that that's something to be taken for granted. Especially we saw the news over the weekend that Hastings Park is going to be closing down out in British Columbia. And I'm a little bummed on a personal level, because I was out in Vancouver this June. Yeah. And I if I had known that was happening, I would have made it a point to stop by and check out that track. And this was a tough one, because it was like there was no warning. There was no notice whatsoever. They kind of just were like, well, we're not going to have racing there anymore. And, you do have Century Mile still out on the west side of Canada. I don't know how much longer that is for this world. That goes away. It's basically just Woodbine, the only thoroughbred track in all of Canada. And I think also of the regional distribution of racing. Now, if Century Mile goes away, now you've lost both Canadian tracks in the Western provinces, Portland Meadows, Bay Meadows, and Golden Gate Fields in Northern California. So that's a huge swath of land where there used to be like 5 or 6 racetracks, and soon there may be none.
Right.
And that's going to leave Santa Anita out on an island. And I'm worried about that. And I just, we see the struggles that Illinois racing is having now that Arlington Park has gone away. And it just seems to be snowballing a little bit, where I used to think, when people were going to be like, well, soon enough, there's only going to be racing in New York or Kentucky. I don't think that that's like around the corner. But the more of these tracks I see closed, John, the more I at least consider that as a possibility in the somewhat near future.
Yeah. And Joe, here's the line in the press release that really cut me to the quick. Okay. And that is Hastings Racecourse in Vancouver, British Columbia, horse racing facility, announced the immediate cessation of all thoroughbred racing operations as of December 5th, 2025. Here's the important part. Due to a lack of economic feasibility and the discontinuation of slot machine subsidies from the provincial government. The casino on the racetrack will remain open. Now, this is exactly why we're fighting decoupling in Florida, because if there's right now, the way the purse structures are set up in most North American racetracks is that they're getting some kind of a boost. They're getting a boost from the government. They're getting a boost from, via subsidies. They're getting a boost from, casino operations, slot machines, table games, what have you. But at the end of the day, HHRs. But at the end of the day, if we had to have this be strictly based on how much money was being wagered and the percent that the racetracks would get from that, we'd all be underwater. There's no way that racing would be, where it is right now. And you talk about the amazing purses at a Kentucky Downs, or the amazing purses at some of these, at Keeneland or at Churchill or at Turfway now, and you can kind of go Colonial Downs, but they're all being propped up outside of the business model of handle equal, percent of handle equals purse money. And ultimately, we talk about the CAWs and what a problem they are. I don't think people realize the full picture of this. If racing has to go back to purses are going to be based on a percentage of just wagering, then we're all screwed, because there's no economic driver at that point as to why you would run horses other than just to be able to say, I have the best horse. And then we're not an industry anymore, for-profit industry anymore. Then we're just like hunter jumpers. And that's fine if that's what people want. If the trophies are the important things and the bragging rights and all the non-economic bennies that go along with racing, but it's gonna crumple racing which then in part is going to greatly decrease the prices that go on at the sales. And I think that was one of the reasons why farms in Kentucky were willing to back the Thoroughbred Racing Initiative and do what we're doing to make sure that decoupling doesn't occur in Florida. But this is just kind of a warning shot of, hey, this is what happened in Vancouver. And yeah, it was a small racetrack, but we have small racetracks that are propped up the exact same way here. And even the bigger racetracks are propped up, in a greater form, in a sense. And I think that it is definitely something that people should notice, even though it happened, in Canada, and even though it happened in Western Canada at a small racetrack. It is just an example, a warning, a precursor, as it were, Joe, of what can and possibly will happen here in the States.
Well, and forget that it's even in Canada. Think about it regionally. Like, Century Mile is the only track within 1,000 miles from there now, and it's especially in an industry where we have not done a good job of attracting new bettors. The only way to get them is to get them out to the racetrack,
right,
and have there be a touch point for people to discover the sport and to bet on their first race. And when you don't have that within 1,000-mile radius, that's a very, very tough thing to overcome. And we've harped on this again and again, but I feel both ways. Like, I do think that the racetrack slot thing was mutually beneficial, at least at first, because the slot parlors and the casinos that came in are glomming off of the gaming license that the racetracks already have.
Right.
That being said, what that has fostered is, I think, attracting new handle has become a lower and lower priority,
right?
Because we're not dependent on it for the purse money. It doesn't necessarily matter in most cases. Like, there are a lot of plays, like, Del Mar, I think, does a really good job, in particular, getting new people out to the races, because that's all they can do.
Right.
That's all that they have. That's the only tool in the toolkit that they have to increase purses and to get more quality racing out there during the summer and the late fall. They don't have the option of just sitting back and kicking their feet up and relying on the slot revenue. And I think that what should have been the approach when this kind of wave of tracks getting slot revenue and slot subsidies happened is, okay, we got a life preserver. We got a reprieve for an industry that's suffering and hard and struggling to bring in new handle. Now, what do we do to make sure that we can stand on our own 2 feet in case the slot revenue goes away? Right. And I just never saw that kind of concerted effort from racetracks to do that. And, especially certain places, like, at least NYRA is trying. Like, if you look at places like Penn National and Charlestown and
Parks,
and Parks, yeah, is a great example. It's like, well, what are you guys doing to bring new people to the racetrack? Like, well, where is the marketing effort? Where is the evidence that you're using this slot revenue to grow your game, right, as well? And we haven't done it, and this is something that's going to be an ongoing problem for us. And Hastings is kind of just the latest example of what can happen if we don't do enough on our part to grow our game. Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance like property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. And another guy who's unique and special is our buddy Chris Moore, who leads Epic's equine specialty practice. You see him all over the place at the sales, the races. He has horses himself. He's a West Point partner. I haven't mentioned that before, but he's got a couple horses with West Point. Just a great dude, all in all. And he's the guy to get all of your insurance mess in order. Yearling season is pretty much done. If you buy yearlings, you got a nice group of horses. You didn't review the ins and outs of your insurance program. You got to fix that ASAP and give Chris a call. Just start the conversation. He can get everything unified so it has the same renewal date. This is the time to review the meat and potatoes of your insurance program: farm, auto, workers' comp, umbrella policies. That January 1st renewal date is right around the corner. Make sure that it's all in order and aligned, and save yourself a headache. Give Chris a call or shoot him a text at 317-650-4519. And that leads us to this week's Epic Performance of the Week. This week's epic performance of the week, and we talked about her a little bit, is Zany. Zany, the dominant winner of the Demoiselle. You know, I was trying to beat her a little bit in that race. It was such a short price off of one race, but man, turning for home, I knew I was screwed right away because she blew past the front runner and just kicked away and was kind of eased up late by Rad Ortiz Jr. So I think that, 89 buyer, I think she could have run a little bit faster than that, and that instantly vaults her towards the top of the 2-year-old filly discussion. And Jon was adamant. I was trying to come up with some other horses to do for Epic, but Jon said no. He planted his flag, and he said Zany is the one. Isn't that right, Jon?
Well, there was no reason to even talk about anything else, Joe, as far as I was concerned. It was Zany or it was nothing. And she earned the epic performance of the week. Well-bred, well-managed, well-trained. And to go from 6.5 furlongs to 8.5 furlongs, and from the cozy 9 furlongs, and then to go from Florida 80 degrees to 30 degrees with a wind chill in New York showed me something. That's
what I'm struggling with this week. She handled it perfectly.
Exactly. So that is why Zany deserves to be this week's
epic performance of the week.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. I know all you guys are percolating and getting your tax returns ready for 2025. Len and the Green Group are the ones you want to do it through. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. Obviously, Len and DJ Stable have over 200 horses. They've won over 2,600 races, man. I say that number every week, and I don't even really think about it. And then I go back and think about it, and that's pretty freaking impressive. Like, I think about, I read an article with Mark Holliday, Blue Devil Racing Stables, and he's won 150 in the last 10 years. And I think of him as a big time owner, and he is. But it just made me put in perspective how successful you guys have been for so long. So you do want someone who knows the business inside and out, like Len and the Green Group, to take care of your tax situation. And as always, there's an exclusive offer for listeners of Rail Talk, complimentary, confidential, half-hour consultation, guaranteeing that he'll find you value. And you call him up. And what's that number, Michael Agresta?
732-634-5100. Green Group.
or
Yeah, no, it centers me every single week, even though I can't actually hear it, and it piped in later. Sorry, taking you behind the curtain, breaking the fourth wall there. But I do love the jingle, and we do love Len and the Green Group, and it will help you out for your 2025 taxes. But you don't have to take it from me. Take it from friend of the show, successful bloodstock agent, and one of the bloodstock agents to the stars, Jon Green and DJ Stable, Kim Valerio.
I've been using Len Green and his team at the Green Group for over a decade. Having a diverse portfolio of mares, foals, yearlings, racehorses, pinhooks, as well as owning a little farm, it was important that I had a firm that understood tax code for our industry. They've done a terrific job in helping me project year in and year out and save me money. Len and Jon Green have been so good to me both personally and professionally. The Green family are salt of the earth people, and the firm and all of the people there follow right in their footsteps. I highly recommend anybody in the industry to use the Green Group.
Thank you, Kim. And, Jon, as you mentioned, she's had some big successes on the racetrack recently. He was also telling me that she's helped DJ buy some horses from overseas. So we're going to start calling her Worldwide Kim and appreciate her and appreciate that she and the Green Group have hooked up to do her taxes. Don't wait too long. That tax date is going to come right around the corner. And obviously, Len and the Green Group are going to be backed up by that point. So get in touch now. Get working on your 2025 taxes. If you're any kind of participant in this business, Len and the Green Group have seen it all, and they can help you and call them up at 732-634-5100 to go to greenco.com. Do it before year's end. Take advantage of that exclusive offer for Rail Talk listeners, our beautiful, beautiful Rail Talk listeners. Go call Len now. So we're recording this on Tuesday. This week, starting yesterday, Monday, was the Racetrack symposium out in Arizona. It's like a big meeting spot every year for people to talk about kind of broad scope issues in the industry. And one of those broad scope issues that's gotten a lot of attention, justifiably so this year, is the influence of CAW bettors. And shout out to Pat Cummings, who has been like the voice on this issue for a really long time. And I think the the authority on, you know, where we're at and what is to be done. He had a little tweet thread that I'm going to read, and then we can react to it because it got a lot of attention. So Pat says, thanks to the Model Rules Committee of the Association of Racing Commissioners International for the invitation today to speak about the state of CAW betting on North American racing. Some very good, useful questions were asked. I stress the need for involvement in one key area: official info, transparency, and seeking accountability. Perception is awful, and the reality is too. At one point, RC Director Ed Martin asked the head of the TRPB if he wanted to address some questions regarding tote and oversight. He declined. Not good. Not good, as Pat says. He goes on to say, I don't know what he is empowered to say or not say. TRPB is a subsidiary of the TRA, a trade consortium of the racetracks, but official silence and the lack of transparency from official sources only drives the ongoing loss of horse player confidence. After he declined, I said to the commission reps, no disrespect, but not answering questions here is part of the problem. It should be part of the job. And I think there was a bit of a gasp from the attendees that he didn't answer. The public believes to varying degrees that there is past posting or corruption or special hidden data, maybe even hacking of tote systems, unethical or potentially illicit data sharing. It has to be addressed. Longtime regulator and now gaming auditor Steve May got up and reiterated that there is no real independent oversight of U.S. tote betting. We need more dialogue from official sources being open and communicative with the public. And a few commission directors mentioned to me afterwards that they want more too. That's good. There's a long way to go. Right. And this is the crux of the issue to me. And it's one thing to, you know, throw horse players a bone and say, hey, we're going to cut CAWs off with 2 minutes to post in the win pool. You know, that's a start. That's better than nothing. But I think beyond that, beyond just getting rid of the late odds swings in the win pool, what people want are answers of first of all, who are these major bettors that are affecting the pools so greatly? You know, what kind of data do they have access to that the rest of us don't have? And is there any malfeasance or is there any kind of nefariousness happening between the tracks, the ADWs, or the elite turf club and all them, and the bettors that are putting so much money through the windows? Because it stinks to high heaven, John. Like, everything about this, you know, it came out that Elite Turf Club is 80% owned by the Stronach Group, 20% owned by Naira. Velocity is owned 100% by Churchill Downs Incorporated. And we've talked about this before, but that, to me, that is like the wolves guarding the hen house. And there's just... And it goes back to what we were talking about the slot subsidies and how we haven't grown the pie in terms of, you know, betting on our core product. That this is like the shortcut to that. It seems like these people believe is like, oh, we'll just get enough big volume bettors that it won't matter, and we'll tread water and all that. We have not only not grown the racing handle from a day-to-day horse player standpoint, we are actively chasing those people away with these relationships and with this, you know, implied or, you know, inferred corruption. And I just hate that there's so little transparency, to Pat's point. Like, this is something that needs to be addressed out in the open by every major racing official in America. You know, this is something that this is an emergency in terms of handle and being able to fund our sport. This is something that cannot just be brushed under the rug, especially now with all the attention it's gotten on Twitter. And I'm thankful for all the people that, you know, have pointed this out and have harped on this all year long, because these, like, the bettors, the people that take the bets, and the track officials clearly just want to get, you know, to brush under the rug. Don't say anything too specific. Like, don't identify anybody. Don't talk about how the systems work. Does that seem like a healthy and a productive way forward for a sport that's losing regular bettors by the day, John? This is something that a lot of people are like, they're like, oh, well, you know, HISA is so terrible and this and that. At least there's transparency in terms of their rulings and in terms of the flexibility of the rules and, you know, public comment periods to change the rules. There has been an introduction of transparency. I'm not saying it's perfect, but on the betting side, there is none of that. And this is something that I've said before that like people think there's past posting going on. I don't agree with that, but how could I possibly argue that with any kind of certainty? Because we don't know. And it's, to the point in Pat's tweet thread, there's no independent oversight of the tote system. Right. So how could I possibly sit there with a straight face and try to convince someone that there's no past posting going on? And they don't even need to do that, honestly. With all the data that they have access to and the last possible millisecond of the pool for all these batch bets, they don't even need to be past posting, but I can't even sit here and tell you they're definitely not.
Yeah. And to go to an annual meeting and not expect that the norm is to have a Q&A session, to have an opportunity for the audience members. I mean, that's one of the perks of attending, is that you get to ask a question or ask questions to the panelists and to the experts in their field. So to go up there and basically say, no, I'm not answering any questions, that's a terrible look and a terrible decision. That they had to have known in advance. When you're going up and you're literally going to be on a dais in front of an audience talking about your craft and your industry, and the norm is they're going to pass around a microphone and to say, I'm not answering any questions.
What are you there for? Like, what are you there for then?
That's a terrible look. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything nefarious going on. I'm just saying that it's you got to know your audience, know why you're there and what your point is. If he had gone up there and said, hey, due to legal restrictions, we are not at this time allowed to discuss any of the intimate details with regard to, our relationships with racetracks, CAWs, blah, 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 then I understand. Okay. The lawyers muzzled you. All right. But to go up there and say, no, I'm not answering any questions, it's not great. I chuckled at the line. I forget who said it. I think it was in one of Pat's tweets, but I don't know if I should attribute it to him or not. But basically it said there's more accountability and transparency on a Wednesday night bingo than there are on the CAWs right now. And I laughed and I went, oh, wait, that's actually true. That's really, really scary. That's the point. There's the one thing I'll say is that, when you run a business, you're accountable to the people within that industry, within that organization, and with your customers. You don't necessarily have the right or you don't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? The duty to be transparent to everybody else. Okay. I understand that's the case. But in this day and age where the people who feed money into your program are begging you on all platforms to offer additional details as to what's going on for the simple reason that they want to know whether or not they should continue to put their own money into your product and serve it. Right. Then I think as a business owner, you have to make a decision and say, how much, if any, of this information are we going to be giving to our end users so that way they can feel more confident in participating with our program. I think that's a different way of looking at it. But we as outsiders can bang on the table as much as we want. We want accountability. We want transparency and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Coca-Cola is not giving away their secret sauce. I mean, they're not giving away their information. Apple's not going to tell you exactly what different features they're looking into for the iPhone 25. Okay. We don't have the right as end users to ask for that. But if we're buying into this process and to this system, we're basically begging for crumbs, saying, why should we continue to put money in this when it's so easy for us to wager on everything else, outside of horse racing?
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, I mean, I just think of like I think it was in the Pollock report, like a while ago, there was like a interview with Scott DeRudy, who works for Elite Turf Club, and basically like trying to get to the bottom of like who these bettors are and like what their arrangement and their relationship is with Elite Turf Club. And he's like, everything's going to be met with a no comment. And that leads me to believe, a lot of people say, racing is chasing away their core customer with these CAWs. Everything that I've seen in the past however many years with the way this sport treats CAWs leads me to believe they think the CAWs are the core customer. And that's who they need to protect. And they could give a shit if the everyday meat and potatoes horse player goes away forever, as long as they can siphon off enough money from a handful of very big bettors And that's a very risky proposition. And especially because supposedly it's basically only 2 bettors that are putting the majority of the handle through the CAWs. Like there are 2 bettors, Elite 2 and Elite 17. Again, we don't even know who these people are, that are responsible reportedly for 20% of all handle in North American racing. 20%, 2 guys. Now, if those guys die or decide to go bet something else, you're going to take a 20% haircut in terms of the handle in this country and then think things are going to be okay. They're putting all their eggs in the basket of these big bettors, and that just gives them more and more power and more leverage over the bet takers. And again, like I think that racing has gotten itself into this predicament, purposefully or not, because we have not grown handle organically. Once we got that slot revenue, we were like, well, that's fine. Well, don't worry about that later. Yeah. And we never actually did it. And now you're in a position where we are disproportionately reliant on a couple of big bettors to keep this sport afloat. And it's not a great situation. And I don't blame anybody who goes away. Like, I am going to do my damnedest to come on this show every week and advocate for the regular horse player as I always do. And I'm going to keep supporting the game, even if it's at a lower level. I'm going to keep betting because I'm passionate about it and I want to see it succeed in the long run. But I don't blame anybody who, says I'm going to take my ball and go home. Like, I've had enough of this shit. I don't feel like I can, affect any kind of change. And I don't feel like I'm getting a fair shake. I don't blame you at all if that's what you decide to do. And I just wish, again, like, this is something. Like, imagine like any other conference where you asked a CEO of a company that's bleeding customers left and right. Like, what's your plan? Like, what's the situation? Like, where are we now? Where do we go from here? And
why should we stay as your customer?
And they say, nah, no comment. I don't really want to talk about that. Would that be acceptable in any other company in the entire world? It's only acceptable in racing, where these fucking backroom deals are being done left and right with the big whales, and the rest of us are left out in the cold, and they don't seem to see anything wrong with that. And it comes back to, something I said last week when we were talking about the jockey walkout. It's like, everybody is just trying to protect their slice of the pie. Right. Like, almost never does anybody, have the global perspective to say, hey, is this going to be good for the game long term? Is this going to be good for every single other factor in this ecosystem? Or is it just good for me and for the couple of people around me? And we just need so many more people, John, to think about the game as a whole. Right. And that's what we do on this show. Like, it's just a podcast. I'm not saying that we're like, curing cancer or anything here, but we get on this show every week to talk about things that need to be changed for the game as a whole, and not just like what's directly in front of us. Right.
Well, Joe, I will say that again, to pat ourselves on the back, rightfully so, about the show. We are outspoken. We don't have agendas, and we don't have to worry about, thankfully, our sponsors coming in and dictating to us what we need to say, like other shows have to. I mean, I get it. Right. They're for profit. We're not. So I understand, the predicament that they're in as far as, being censored by the people that pay the bills. That being said, I will say that as we get pushed to the edge of extinction, that there are groups that are coming up this podcast, the Thoroughbred Racing Initiative, Pat Cummings, where, they're coming in and saying, I'm doing this for the betterment of the industry, because you knuckleheads have run this business independently in your little fiefdom for decades and decades and decades, and we can't afford to do that anymore. We need to come together and start to get a game plan together that will benefit the entire industry. So, I can't, again, now I'm going to sound like the guy out in Arizona. I can't disclose who contributed to Thoroughbred Racing Initiative, but I can tell you that the roster of farms and the roster of major owners and trainers and breeders and people who make a living, in this industry, that came together and donated money to, for this cause, would surprise you. And I think in a positive way, it would make you feel better about, what's going on as an industry. But yeah, we need to do more of that, because there's still a lot of, well, you ain't getting my piece.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, my piece may not be around 10 years from now unless we get our shit together and start doing this. So I will say that I was pleasantly surprised by, instituting Thoroughbred Racing Initiative and the group that is backing it now, that there are a lot of people that are recognizing, hey, we need to fix the sport and the business model. And then we can fight over, how this increased pie should be cut up. My concern, Joe, is too little, too late, because we've been on this, to use Mike Rapoli's comment, we've been on the Titanic for a really long time, and we're slaloming all these icebergs. And he's not wrong about that, because as an industry, there's a lot of things we've talked about it that we need to continue to do better. But you and I are going to continue to bang the drum until we make continued progress on this. And then at some point in time, if we're not needed anymore, then you can go back to male modeling. I'll go back to, to making puppets in my basement with the cave crickets, and we can, move on down the road.
Hey, it's honest work, male modeling. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. But no, and I think that's why I gave you guys a ton of credit and continue to with the TRI, because it's not easy. To quote the great Bunk Moreland, it's not easy civilizing this motherfucker. And you guys got a lot of smart, powerful people to put their differences aside and unite behind this one goal. And I think that's so valuable, and it should serve as an example for the industry that without all of us, there's none of us. And I think, just to go back to the horse player thing for a second, if we could ever organize and do a real boycott of this track or that track, or just as a whole, do a general strike type deal where, hey, we refuse to bet this weekend or this week or whatever it is, and it's never going to happen to 100% solitude or solidarity, but it's something that I think people need to look into and really kind of disseminate, because how else could you possibly get through to the people who think that the way forward is to rely on a couple of big bettors, and we won't even tell you how any of the process works with their major bets. That's not acceptable. And I think regular horse players are ready to revolt. You just need some organization. And that's where, the TRI has been very helpful in terms of Florida racing. And I hope more fights going forward on that front. It's one other thing I want to mention is that HISA released its third quarter fatality data. Racing related equine fatality rate in the third quarter of 2025 was 1.02 per 1,000 starts. That's up slightly from last year. It was 0.93 for the third quarter of 2024. It was 1.18 for the third quarter of 2023. Just as a year to date number, we're at 1.04. We're at 1.05 for the last 12 months. For the last 24 months, we're at 0.95. And then going back to 2021, which was the last full year before the HISA's Racetrack safety program launched, we were at 1.39 per 1,000 starts. So we made a lot of progress. It does seem like we're plateauing a little bit this year. We just getting the number down to 1 seemed like a dream at one point, and we've already done that. Now the question is, what can we do to drive the number even lower than that? Because that's not, any number greater than 0 isn't good enough. And I think that while there has been a lot of progress made, this is something that, again, needs uniformity. You need every racetrack to be singing from the same sheet in terms of what they're doing for horse safety and track safety. I do want to shout out a handful of tracks who had 0 in the third quarter. Los Al, obviously that's a small or like a boutique meet, but had a 0% fatality rate. Laurel, which runs a lot of races, had a 0 fatality rate, and they were only at 0.47 last year. So they're doing a really good job. Canterbury went from 0.97 to 0. Remington Park went from 0.62 to 0. 3 additional tracks, Santa Anita, Timonium, and Aqueduct, had a 0 fatality rate. So there's a lot of tracks that have done a lot of good work. And I always think of California in particular, coming from where we were in 2019. And now it looks like we have the safest racetracks in the country out at Santa Anita and Del Mar. And yet another reason why we should protect Southern California racing. And I hope that we will unite to protect Southern California racing. John, it's hard to draw broad conclusions from quarter by quarter metrics. It does seem like we are in a much better spot than we used to be But there is something that, there is more work to be done. And one of the things I'm looking forward to, and I know a lot of people aren't, is the synthetic racing at Belmont in the winter. And you just see it like with the short fields and kind of very ugly racing that we have in Aqueduct over the winter. I think introducing synthetic racing as a third surface can only help on the safety side. And John, any reactions just from these stats?
Well, like you said, Joe, anything greater than zero is unacceptable. The goal is zero. Will we ever get to zero? No, unfortunately. That's just the nature of dealing with athletes. Is that they're going to sometimes bad things are going to happen, unfortunately. Uniformity is important. Don't forget the open window is for comments is still going on. So if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, now's the time to do it. Speak now or hold your peace. I will say that the timonium inclusion in that number is probably not correct, only in the sense that, they had 0 fatalities for racing, but at the 2-year-old sale, they did not. And I know that's not covered
for the third quarter, though.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. You're right. I'm sorry. That's my bad, because I'm thinking about the calendar. But what I was going to say is that they did have a couple of fatalities during the 2-year-old sales, which is not under HISA's purview. But it forced a major sales company to change the way that they're doing business now, and make it an untimed. That entire sale is going to be untimed. So again, is HISA the ultimate answer? I don't know. But is it better than what we had? Yes. Is it forcing people in the industry to think about, if not change their ways for safety measures, and considering, the athlete first with regard, or the athletes, even the human athletes first, as far as that goes? Yeah. So the mindset is changing as well. And I think that's probably even more important than the actual statistics, is that people are much more conscious of what's going on. It's not perfect. The system is not perfect. That's why, they're asking for additional information and additional comments from everybody, and constantly trying to improve, which I think all of us should aspire to. But my big thing, Joe, you've talked about it as well, is that these are the rules that are in place right now. This is the letter of the law, and you have to respect it and you have to do it. And I think that it is making the industry safer and stronger because of it. We've regained a social license also. I sound like a broken record, but in order to get new people to come in, they have to know that more time, or I should put it this way, that there's going to be a lot less, negative things going on the racetrack than in the past, because of these, tried and true rules and regulations to help protect everybody.
And this is something that, there's plenty of arrows that are going in the wrong direction in this game. This is an arrow that's going in the right direction. I think it should be celebrated and supported, and not, sniped at every chance. There are also the training related fatality data in there. For the calendar year, we're at 0.5 per 1,000 workouts. For Q3 though, we're at 0.38. So that's a big drop from the calendar year numbers, and a slight drop from the 0.42 of 2024 Q3. If you want to go check out the data broken down by track, or split out by track, I should say, you can go to HISA's website, and they'll have the Q3 metrics report. It's really fascinating to look at, and to see kind of what tracks are doing the best work, and what tracks need a little bit of improvement. But this is the kind of transparency that you never got. It could never even fathom getting in a million years before this came about. So all the people that are complaining about, not enough transparency in the CAW arena, and I'm agreeing with you on that, this is the kind of transparency that having unified regulatory body gets you. And, it's good to see the numbers going down. Now we got to make them go down even further. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. Obviously a phenomenal year in the sales ring for Fasig-Tipton, whether it's the digital ring or the brick and mortar sales, records dropping left and right. The December digital sale ends December 10th. We're recording this on Tuesday. So if it does come out Wednesday morning, get involved before it's too late. The last digital opportunity of the year. And then we'll spin forward to 2026. The Kentucky Winter Mixed Sale kicks off the brick and mortar sales February 9th at Newtown Paddocks in Lexington. You can go to Fasig.com and check out the 2026 calendar. Check out all those digital offerings. The next digital sale will be in January 15th through the 20th. You can enter horses through January 5th, and then there will be a digital sale pretty much every single week. And then we're looking forward also to the Mid-Atlantic 2-year-olds in training sale. John's talked about it a bunch. The change this year to Gallop only. I think that's going to be revolutionary for the 2-year-old sales. And shout out to Fasig for being willing to be the first in the pool and try that out next year. So we're looking forward to that. But in the meantime, as I mentioned, plenty of action on the digital sales ring. Go get involved at digital.fasig-tipton.com. So we are so thrilled to bring this next guest back to the Rail Talk studio, friend of the show, last place finisher in our Derby fantasy contest, and president of TJC Media Ventures, Dan Tordjman. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man, it's good to be back. Well, I mean, can I use an excuse that I was presidenting? That's why I finished last. Does that work?
I'm very busy. Very busy. A lot going on.
You know. Next year, I want my revenge. I'm coming back next year.
Just to be clear. Yeah, no, we'll have you back for sure. Just to be clear, that was not in order of importance of the things I introduced Dan as. You know, it was just a random assortment of accomplishments of Dan's. But no, we're really excited to have you on, in particular, because you just got back from the Japan Cup. You told me you didn't really sleep at all for the past week or so we appreciate you making time. And if you do nod off during the interview, we won't hold it against you.
You'll only be the third person to nod off during our interviews.
Patty sleeps the entire time, and then we shake her awake, and we're like, hey, "You got to do some edits." Okay, anyway, Dan, tell us about that experience at being at the Japan Cup and just being in Japan in general, because John and I have never been.
Yeah, I had never been to Japan either. It is so right now. They're 12 hours ahead of us in Tokyo. I'm on the East Coast here. I guess I didn't put enough stock into like how much of an impact that would have would have on me. So yeah, since I've been back, I haven't been able, I've been back for a week. I have not readjusted. So I'm on minimal sleep. That was the only downside of the trip. Tokyo is spectacular. We didn't get to go beyond Tokyo, but we went into a bunch of different, areas, including like this popular fish market. I ate a ton of sushi. I mean, obviously if you love food, it's paradise. You got sushi, you've got ramen, you've got we had these the octopus balls. Are you familiar with those? Those were amazing. Even at the track, we ate. I mean, when have you thought about eating octopus balls at a racetrack? It was one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. Full stop. The food was great. Sightseeing was great. A bunch of different, temples and just sightseeing, just beautiful. I mean, it's everything you heard it was. Like you've ever heard of Japan. Everything's clean. There's sort of this respect for human, just basically not necessarily space between human beings, but the way traffic flows. And so. I was going to say human traffic, but I realized that was a weird phrase to use.
That's one place where they really respect human trafficking.
Yeah. Let me try to figure out a different way to phrase this. But just in the way people understand, there's so many people, yet you don't really run into anyone because people just kind of intuit okay, I'm going here, you're going there, and it just flows. Everything flows. So that was true. Moving around Tokyo, that was also true at the racetrack. Everything was just seamless. It worked perfectly. The betting, just lines of thousands of mostly young people betting with slips. You fill out your slip, you put it in the machine, put your money. There's no waiting. There's never that person reading the form handicapping while they're making their bet. That person doesn't exist in Japan. It's all just respect, process. We all get it. We're doing it. We're moving on. We're watching this race and we love it. So it was spectacular. It was perfect. It was amazing.
And Dan, what's the attendance expectations at these races? Not only for a big race like the Japan Cup, but other days there. Just illuminate our audience members. And the second question is, I thought you went there primarily for the Pokemon convention. And you ended up at the races? Is that true?
I did come back with about 40 plushies, so I don't know if that counts. But
we saw online. You would tweet out, you're like, look, I got another stuffed animal. It's like, all right,
it's really mad. Like this video that's going to come out too. It's me playing like the crane game or the claw game, because those are everywhere too. So I mean, I probably blew like $150 on just the crane game, but I won two plushies, so that was fine. Let me just say this real quick. Money wise, I did blow money doing that, but everything else was honestly so reasonably priced and affordable. We went out to like a couple of lunches and dinners where we ate, we drank, and the bill came for 3-4 people, and it was like $50. So that's really great. Your money obviously goes a long way there. So yeah, your question about attendance. So there were two race days. It was Saturday and Sunday. Sunday was Japan Cup Day. Saturday they had about 15,000 people, and Sunday they had 80,000 people. And I think that's pretty typical, anywhere from 10 to 20,000 people on sort of a regular day, and on their big days, double or triple that, with Japan obviously Japan Cup Day being the biggest day. So, for the most part, it didn't feel like I didn't feel like, crowded or overwhelmed. But again, I grew up in New York City, and I commute into Manhattan every day. So maybe that's why I didn't feel crowded. But no, I felt comfortable. And I think, our team, for the most part, we didn't have any issues getting to where we needed to go around the track. We were shooting video all over the place, and it was pretty easy to get around. And like I said, there was sort of like a respect for everyone around you. So you kind of understand, like, hey, people are trying to get their bets in. They're trying to get food. They're trying to get a beer before this next race. And you were able to do it without issue. Like it was a really nice experience. So did I answer that question? Did I answer all of it?
Yes. And the Pokemon?
Oh yeah. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I answered all of it. Go ahead.
Yes. It's interesting. I feel like Japan is kind of like a model for what we need to be in this country in order to have a sport, a healthy sport long term, not just in terms of the attendance, but specifically the attendance among young people. Now, is there something like, is there anything you picked up from your travels and kind of your research that you were doing before you went on this trip that Japan does well to get people out to the races and specifically that younger generation? Because other than you guys, I don't see anybody doing that kind of thing here in America.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's noticeable off the bat when you're in Tokyo, when you're around Tokyo, that there are billboards and there's signage everywhere for horse racing generally, and there are images of horses kind of naturally woven into society. I just think culturally, it's just something that the sport itself and horse racing is just so native to Japan, and so I think, and depending on where you are here in the States, like I think we're obviously at least in terms of cultural acceptance of horse racing, we might be a bit more fragmented, and so I think the industry here is kind of probably more up against it in terms of selling horse racing to a broad national audience than they might be out there. So I think that's one thing. But also, I think I saw this blend like with anime culture, and I can't remember the name. I'm like completely like going to blank on it now. But there's this game with. Do you know what I'm talking about, Joe? You're nodding a little. I don't know if you know the name of it, but there's a name of basically this like sort of anime game with these figures that are modeled after famous horses. And I'm blanking on. I'm going to get killed for this later because I mentioned to a few people out there, but a lot of people we spoke to at the track said that their exposure to horse racing started from that game, which I think it's one of the it's a Cygames thing. It started in like 2021, so it's relatively new, and I think that's gotten a lot of younger people into horse racing too. And then you could just see how the track itself and how the sport itself is giving people what they want, which is, there's fandom around specific horses. So there are the plushies, there are shirts, they're all just different merch that you can kind of invest in and kind of channel your fandom into. The other thing that I found like mind blowing, the horse Gentle Donna passed away midweek Japan Cup week. And this is obviously the highly, accomplished racehorse in Japan and a national hero. And you hear people say, "Oh, national hero, the horse is a national hero." But what I didn't realize was that on Sunday when I went to the track, I stumbled upon a memorial to Gentle Donna. They literally had a framed photo of her, and there was a line of about 50 people at any given moment cycling through, bringing flowers to another framed photo of her, and also signing like sort of a funeral sort of guest book, and coming up, and people were coming up and praying and crying in front of this photo of Gentle Donna, a racehorse who's been retired, I believe, for about 10 years. And but her dying so deeply impacted so many racing fans there. Now try to think about like if that happened here, yes, people would express, you'd have fans expressing, sadness maybe on social media, that sort of thing. But imagine going to the track and there being like a memorial to a horse that people are going up to and praying and crying. I mean, it's a level of passion and dedication to these horses from a sheer fan perspective that I've never experienced. Like, I think that's probably the best example of what I experienced in terms of like, this is not just casual fandom. Like, let's root for this horse. Let me bet on this horse. It is like, these are their athletes. Like they love these horses. So I thought that was really illuminating.
Incredible.
Did you get a chance to get out to any of the farms at all, where a lot of these high expense broodmares are being purchased here and ending up at Northern Farm, for example?
Unfortunately, I didn't. It was like a 4-day trip. We were on the ground for 4 days, and we were fairly limited in our ability to get. Because the tracks.
You were too busy eating octopus balls. I mean, that's really the answer, Dan, is that you were stuffing your face as opposed to going out and seeing our national treasures like, Wonder Wheel and Jaywalk and horses like that. But that's okay. That's okay. I get it. Your tummy's full, so that's good.
Yeah. I ate well. That's all. That's all we need to know. But no, I've got to go back. I've got to go back for more than 4 days. My wife initially asked me. She's like, "You're going to Japan?" She's like, "That's crazy." She's like, "Should I come with you? Like, can I come with you?" I was like, "Nah." I was like, yeah. And I'm like, it would have been too crazy. But I do. I'm like, as soon as I got back, I'm like, we've got to plan a trip to Japan. Like, we have to go to Japan. We've got to go for like, at least 10 days. Like, there's so much to see. I didn't see anything. I saw, I saw a lot of food and horses.
Were there any questions that they were asking that the Japanese dignitaries or fans were asking you that you were like, that's really strange that this question keeps coming up, or wow, I didn't think about that. Why are they asking me that question?
This is not going to be the greatest answer. I don't know that fans necessarily asked us any questions specifically about like American racing or anything like that. We were asking them about Forever Young. We were interested in like, how big Forever Young, and they're like, Forever Young's amazing. They didn't make a Forever Young plushie yet though, which I didn't get. So they're working.
There's your business idea. That's your $1 billion idea.
But the one thing that a couple of there was other international media that we were there with. It was part of this like international press group that we were with, and a couple of them brought up, because it was on the heels of that ambulance incident, they were like, "What the hell happened there?"
Yeah.
I'm just here for the octopus.
You tell we don't claim Evangeline Downs over here.
Yeah, that's not part of our circuit.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know anything about that. So, but that's sad, right? Like that's right. An American. Let's ask him about the ambulance incident. So that wasn't great.
Yeah. The ambulance.
I'm just being honest, though. That's
no. I mean, that's a good answer. Like it doesn't have to be all sunshine and roses. The ambulance almost ran over the field.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that happened, and that we have like no answers about how it happened. Or I still can't get over that. I want to shift the conversation a little bit to talk about the successful partnership with Griffin Johnson, because we've talked about this off air, on air. Like the influencer program does not always bear fruit. It's like there's a lot of people that kind of just do the bare minimum and then go back to their regular life. He's done the exact opposite of that. He's jumped in with both feet, both hands, everything, to the point that like there's been some backlash to him that I just think is not fair. The question to me is like, how do we capitalize on that and make sure that we capture these young people that are tuning in for the first time for the long term? Because I see it a little bit in my role with West Point. Like I get people who are Griffin Johnson fans that'll call up and ask about horses, and the vast majority of them do not have the money to invest right now. But that seed is being planted for when they are 10, 15 years down the road. They do have more disposable income. Maybe they do become owners. I'd love to see them become bettors too. What are kind of the internal discussions that you guys have had about the success of the partnership with Griffin and kind of how we carry that forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me just say a couple of things first before I dive into all those elements. One is at the University of Arizona, they're having the symposium right now. Griffin is going to be on a panel Wednesday with Rachel Miller from our team, who's really a big part of orchestrating that whole campaign. So shout out Rachel Miller. Rachel's been on the show before. And she's really going to get into a lot of our strategy as we head into 2026 and kind of, absolutely. I mean, Rachel is, I can't say enough.
She's awesome.
We love Rachel.
So, a lot of it takes, honestly, having people in the room like Rachel who can, sit back, look at what we accomplished and say, okay, look, is this something that we double down on now? Or is it something that we say, hey, you know what, we hit it out of the park. Let's do our home run trot, step on home plate, go back to the dugout and regroup and say, okay, what do we do next? And next might not necessarily be another campaign like Griffin's campaign, right? In a lot of ways, we caught lightning in a bottle, right? Great horse, you might have heard of him. Sandman is the one that got paired with Griffin. So that helped. Griffin happened to be, I think, at a stage in his career where, he had the ability to invest himself the way he did in the story and to tell the story the way he did. And it also helped that he had a genuine, sort of immediate attraction and love for the sport based on him growing up around horses. So there was a lot that kind of just worked. He made the time to make it a success. He committed himself to it. The odds of us finding someone else with 15 million followers who's going to have the availability and the interest to commit themselves to day after day posting content and doing it in a way that he did it, and then having a horse as good as Sandman heading into next year's Derby are obviously minuscule, right? So we look at what we accomplished. We know that what we were able to do through him is reach so many people in the demo that we're trying to reach, which is under 30, not exposed to horse racing. We reach those people at the greatest numbers that I think any campaign in the history of the sport ever has. So now I think the insight that we took from that is look, we have the ability through storytelling, obviously aided by him to a large extent, to tell stories that give people a look into a different aspect of the sport that maybe they haven't seen, which in this case was ownership and the care for the horse. How do we do more of that? Because that we can control. We can't control, the behavior of another influencer or the success of the horse that they're paired with, but we could control storytelling, and we could find ways to continue to message on the things that resonated with a lot of his audience. So looking at whatever those touch points were that made people feel so connected to Sandman and the process of caring for him, whether he won or he lost, I think we double down on those kinds of stories. And so we're looking at ways to build out new campaigns with the idea being marketing through storytelling, trying to reach those audiences. And you mentioned betting, and I think betting is a key part of this. We need to do more trackable campaigns tied to betting. People want to know how many people bet as a result of Griffin. We need to do trackable campaigns, right? We need to put in the hands of Griffin and others like him, whether they be promo codes or sort of direct lines for conversion to people to make bets or to sign up for accounts and then be able to report back, hey, this was the outcome. So it's not impossible to do. We can do it. We've done campaigns where we've tracked ticket sales for races, where we've managed those campaigns, and we've driven people to specifically. We did one at Far Hills actually in October, where through a $15,000 paid spend, we were able to turn $340,000 in ticket sales for Far Hills, we want to work with racetracks to do similar campaigns like that. So for us, it's all about being able to, we have all this great like top of funnel info that we could show people. Hey, we reached all these hundreds of millions of people this past year. We had 280 million video views between us and Griffin. It's crazy. Wow. 280 million video views. But now what, right? How do we move them down the funnel? How do we get them to take sort of meaningful action? So that's what we're focused on as we head into next year.
So Dan, my takeaway from all that is that Joe and I pushed the needle on the Sandman program. Is that what you're saying to our audience?
It looks like Joe's face.
I just that's all I heard.
John already had me as a male model. Now I'm an influencer. John, I can only wear so many hats.
I'm here to prop you up, buddy. That's all I'm here. So Dan, so my last question to you is, what should we expect from ABR as far as the next initiative? Is it going to be, like you said, is it storytelling and you bring in like Sheryl Crow to sing a song about a horse? Is it like what should we expect, or what's on the horizon? Well, I didn't want to say Sarah, what's her name, who does the SBCA, video.
Sarah McLachlan.
Sarah McLachlan, yeah. So I was trying to pivot to Sheryl Crow instead.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Upbeat person, that runs in Dan's circles. That's one. What should we expect from ABR in the next 6 to 12 months that our audience can gravitate to and be excited about?
Yeah, I think if we're successful, what we will do is we will be reaching people who are perhaps not watching the show.
What?
I know, it sounds terrible. I love you, but
I'm right back at you, buddy.
But Griffin for about 12 months before anyone in racing knew about him, he was telling his story. And we were working with him for that entire 12 months, and no one in racing had any clue who he was. And it was during that time period that he was actually building the infrastructure and the framework for what eventually became the success of this campaign. Because he wasn't messaging to the industry. He was messaging to people who we need to reach, who are not currently, aware of anything that's going on in this sport. So I think we will, while respecting the fact that we have a role to play in also, helping this sport, working internally and working within the sport to help this sport market itself. And I think we'll do that. We'll continue to work with, as I mentioned, tracks to help them drive people to the track, help them drive wagering. We're going to do all those things through individual campaigns. But when we work on the influencer type campaigns, and look, influencers are they're a part of any marketing mix for any legitimate business or industry out there. So influencers are not going away. I think our approach to influencers will be a little different though. And we're not going to put all of our eggs in the basket of one influencer and hope that brings us to, that's it, that what Griffin's doing is great. And we are fully supporting what he's doing, and we want him to continue doing it. But there are so many levers that we haven't pulled yet from a marketing perspective that we need to consider. And there's a lot. I mean, we could do a show for 2 hours and I could talk you through. I've got all my different potential campaigns in front of me that we're working through. I don't want to promise anything because some of these things, invariably will fall by the wayside. So I don't want to say any one particular campaign, but we're working on a lot of different campaigns that deal with ownership, awareness around ownership, betting. I think those are the two key things that I'm looking at right now. We're also looking at storytelling that's resonant beyond horse racing, but has a horse racing touch point. I don't want to blow it, but we are looking to do something in the space of shining a light on autism and autism in racing. And so, that's a story that transcends, right? So
yeah, that's great.
I think that's another thing that we're looking at. But yeah, we've got dozens and dozens of ideas that give credit to our entire team for chipping in. And it's not a very big team, but everyone invests creative energy in making sure that, we've got fresh ideas for next year. Our next big marketing campaign is in the works. And the agency that we work with as well, Branch and Brand, will give them a shout out. They've been with us for a good chunk of this journey. And, they keep us, they remind us that it's great. We had an incredible year, 2025, our best year to date, but that's not going to necessarily mean that 2026 is our best year. So we have to keep pushing it.
Yep.
Keep building, and I know you got the right folks in place. You mentioned you and Rachel and the team. We appreciate what you guys are doing. Let's like you said, 2025 is the best year yet. There's no reason that we can't continue that growth if we find the right avenues and the right people. And I think above everything, make people fall in love with the horse, with the animal. And I think that's one thing that Griffin did really well, and that you guys do really well in your storytelling. Dan Tordjman, thanks for coming on, bud. Always appreciate it.
It's great seeing you guys. Don't sleep on those octopus balls, by the way. I feel like you sort of dismiss them a little bit.
There's one thing I remember about Dan. It's his love for octopus balls.
Yeah, it's his enormous octopus balls.
Bye, guys.
So I mentioned it in the open, but I did have some fun in the sun over the weekend down in Ocala. John gave me like the little eyebrow raise. There wasn't anything freaky.
You're still albino.
that's it. Like I get it again. I'm a winter, John. That's what they tell me. It's like I don't even being Italian / Mediterranean. I don't tan all that easily. No. Anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, I was down at the West Point Yearling Showcase, but I also stopped by Mark Cassie's farm on Friday in Ocala, and we'd only been there once, and that was to record the podcast right around when we bought Sandman. Right. And I only saw like the front side of the racetrack. This time I went back, I saw all the barns, I saw all the facilities. It's an incredibly impressive,
it's huge
place, and I didn't realize like how many people work there, how many horses they have, and now I kind of get it when Mark doesn't answer my calls. So I used to be a little bit sensitive about that, but now that I see the freaking 9,000 acre farm he manages, I'll be a little bit more forgiving for Mark not answering my call. But no, it was great. He was great. We took a bunch of the team members and a bunch of West Point partners out there. He gave us a tour, answered questions. Like he was just tremendous. Like he's second to none in this business in terms of talking to people and explaining things and answering questions. But the headline is that I got to see some of the Rail Talk family horses down there, and we'll put the video up. I got to see Ewing, who's back on the track. Went back to the track last week. Looks great. And he's really not that far away. He'll probably breeze in like 2 weeks or so. And then 1 or 2 breezes down in Ocala. He'll be ready to go over to Oaklawn and start the Derby Trail, hopefully for 2026. I missed Sandman by a day, which was a little bit of a bummer, but he's back at Oaklawn, and John can expound on that. But I also saw two yearlings that we bought together. Casino, who's a beautiful chestnut by Constitution. He's hit the ground running down in Ocala, and he's probably going to be one of the earlier shippers to Mark's racing stable in 2026, and Chapman as well, who's the New York bred, not this time out of Spacey Tracy. He's grown up a ton. Last time I saw him was at the New York bred sale during the summer, and he was a little itty boy, and he still sold for a lot of money because of that pedigree. John, if he sold today, he would sell for at least twice what we paid for him. He is a big old beast of a horse and just beautifully put together.
Yeah, he's always been, conformationally, he's always been, correct and good looking, and has an enormous stride, especially in comparison to his size. But now it sounds like he's going to be, almost 16 hands by the time all is said and done. And for not this time, that's solid, size. He's a mid-June foal, Joe. So I mean, he's still behind everybody physically as far as that goes. But
crazy.
It's crazy, but yeah, I mean, the pedigree has exploded. It was great when we bought it. It's even better now. And I had forgotten that he's a New York bred. So Saratoga, here we come with him. But it sounds like all of the West Point DJ horses are moving forward and graduating. And Sandman, now it looks like that he's at Oaklawn. The goal is to run him in early February and get him on the stakes board there. Same thing with potential 3-year-old of the year filly Nitrogen. We gave her a little bit of a breather, and she came back and was like snorting fire. She wanted to get back to the racetrack, and she's sound. So we just put her right back in training after a couple of weeks of R&R, and she'll head to Oaklawn. So I think all the major older horses, including Ewing, are heading to Oaklawn this winter and spring, Joe. And then, before we know it, we're going to be turning the page and we're going to start seeing 2-year-olds running.
Yep. No, it's exciting. And like I said, Sandman missed him by a day, but I'm glad it's for a good reason. He's doing so well that he's already over at Ocala. And so, yeah, everybody, kicking ass and enjoying the sun down in Ocala. And it was great to see us all and see them all. And hopefully another big year in 2026 for the West Point and DJ partnership. And yeah, the Chapman half brother that West Point owns, Ohana Honors, got his first stakes win a couple of weeks ago. So big pedigree update for him. And yeah, we're blessed to have these horses in the stable, and let's keep moving in the right direction. That's going to do it for this episode 116 of Rail Talk. Great to have Jon back in the saddle. Glad you're feeling well. Always good to see you. And this was a fun episode. I felt like a lot of good conversations. Thanks to Dan Tordjman for stopping by to chat with us fresh off of this Japan visit. Thank you to our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producers, Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson. Shout out to you, the viewers and the listeners, for tuning in. And we'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk.